Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to teach you how you can generate this pattern in C programming language. So if you only want the solution, you can skip right in the end of the video. I have provided a screenshot there. Or else if you want a proper understanding of how to create this pattern in C programming, you can stick with me and learn all the stuff. To learn this, you would require for loop, nested for loop, and if and else if condition. To create this pattern, first of all, you need to understand this pattern. So I'm counting the rows, that is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now let's count the column, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. So we have 4 rows and 7 columns. So now let's recognize the pattern more. Alright, so if we would have 3 rows only, then how many columns would we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So now let's make a small table. This is just for understanding the code. You don't have to write all this stuff in exam. In exam, all you need to write is a basic code. So rows, column, right? So for 3 rows, you would require 5 column. For 4 rows, you would require 7 column. And for 5 rows, you would require 9 column to generate this pattern. Or let's say for 2 row, you would require 3 column, and for 1 row, you would only require 1 column. You can observe it from here. For 1 row, 1 column. For 2 row, 1, 2, 3 columns. So once you recognize that, what you can say is there are n number of rows. I mean, for n number of rows, how many columns would you require? 2n minus 1, that you have studied in sequence and series. So 1, 2, 3, 4 means nth term, and 1, 3, 5, 7 means 2n minus 1th term, right? Now what teacher teaches us is the concept of I and j in nested for loop. Now we have rows and column. Simple. What are i's and j is I is the row and j is the column. That would be more easy for you to understand. So now let's get into the coding side. Now we are here at the coding side. Alright, so we have i's and j's, that is rows and column. What we found out that for n number of rows, you would be requiring 2n minus 1 column in this particular question only. For I is equal to 1, I is smaller than equal to n. So why I am writing n here? Because as I said, I is the row, and how many rows do we need? That is nth row. So until and unless you reach n, you are going to loop it up. Alright, so this is how loop works. And we need to increment it by 1 at each step. So this is the for loop. So let's get inside this for loop. For j is equal to 1, right, we would start j from 1, then we are going to head up to 2n minus 1. J is smaller than equal to 2n minus 1. We are going to increment the j. Let's go inside this nested loop and create some condition that will allow us to print this. Now what we have here is 3 number of rows and how many number of columns? That is 5. So now let's convert it into some more understandable way. Alright, so I said you earlier that this is j and this is I. So we are asking the user, that is n, we are asking for the user to input the number of rows and we are assigning it to n. We can do that by scanf function, that is %d, comma, and n. We are assigning it to letter n. Alright, so if our user assigns 3, that is the number of rows, he is asking for 3 rows, right? Alright, so in terms of rows, there are 3 rows, and the third row is this. But what about the column? The third column is this, that is n. So this is basically n. And what would be this number of column? What would this be? This would be n plus 1. That is the fourth column. Alright, so as n equals 3, that is n plus 1 equals 4. That is 3 plus 1. So this would be n plus 1, and this would be n plus 2. Similarly, this would be n minus 1, and this would be n minus 2. N minus 1 is what? How can we rewrite n minus 1 so that we would create some link between the rows and the column? So what is the row from which this column has printed the star? That is the second row, right? In second row we have a star, and in the second column we have the star. So we need to establish it something like that. In this, it's in the third it's in the first column and in the third row. So to establish, we can simply convert this term into the row term. Alright, so if we have n minus 1, what we can rewrite is n minus 2 minus 1. That is simply n minus 1 itself. So why are we doing this? This 2 right here, it represents the row. So this is row, that means it is I mean, we are converting the column equation into the row equation by doing this. Even if you check this, that is n minus 2, we can convert it by n minus 3 minus 1. 3 is the starting star space here, like matrix. Alright, so I mean, like you can see here, in this column and in this row there is the first star. So to make a condition such that the star is printed in these gaps and space are printed except for this gap, we are going to use if condition. If, alright, if our j variable, that is column variable, is greater than or equal to n minus 1 is what? N minus 2 minus 1, 2 is I, so n minus I minus 1. If j is greater than n minus I minus 1 and j is smaller, that is, we created this condition but we have not created this condition. So if j is smaller than n plus I minus 1 condition, then we are going to print star, else we are going to print a space. So hope you understood this.